Hey everyone, Ronan here, and welcome back to the channel. We got a lot to cover today, but before we get into that, let's take a look at this analytical stat bar right here. You guys already know the drill. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and don't forget to drop a comment to help feed the algorithm. But with all that being said, let's hit into the second half of the second season of What If Indigo Champion Ash challenged the Johto League. I hope you guys enjoy. We begin today's part with Team Gary as they stand outside of the ecuteak gym. The last few weeks since they left Cianwood City have been rather uneventful since their brush with that strange individual and Metatite up in the Savari zone. While their days have been quiet compared to the regular normality, it's not like they didn't have anything to do. As stopping off in the Whirl Islands and seeing a couple of places they didn't get to see when they competed in the World Cup, they then found themselves back in Olivine City, where both Gary and Ethan got a chance to face off against Jasmine in a rematch just to see if she had grown any stronger. Luckily for them, they were still able to beat her, justifying the win that Ethan had gotten over her and earning both Gary and him their mineral badge. Then they just had some lazy days making their way back to ecuteak City, with Gary really getting a chance to work with Houndour now that it's officially his Pokemon. The Dark Doggo is very playful, however it is also very protective of Gary, growling at anything that comes near him that may be of any type of threat to him. This is even towards Ethan and Marina, as if they show any type of aggression towards Gary, even if it's just in a playful manner, it will spark up an Amber attack to remind them that it's watching over the situation, and they better not try any funny business around its trainer. And that brings us to today, as Gary finds himself standing at the doors of the ecuteak gym one more time. He's been thinking about this rematch since they got on the boat heading into the Whirl Islands, which was about 4 months from their current time. While the last battle in this gym resulted in his loss, Gary is ready to make up for that today by earning his next badge, so that way he can get one more step closer to the Johto League. As the sun begins to crest the tops of Gary's shoulder, he pushes on the massive gym doors, announcing himself to Morty and that he has returned for a chance to battle his gym. Smiling, Morty greets the oak boy, telling him that he was beginning to wonder if he would ever come back for a rematch, since Morty's been back for a little over a month now. Oh, don't worry, we hit some other gyms that we had to clear up in the western part of Johto, and then we figured we'd make our way back to you. Besides, didn't you say you were going to be gone for a little while? So I'm pretty sure you needed the time to prepare for our rematch. Morty just chuckles, telling Gary that is true, but he took care of what he needed to do, and now he's ready to take over the gym again, so that way he can start accepting new challengers. And it looks like Gary's going to be the first one of the day. Gary won't have it any other way, as both trainers take their sides of the field as the ref decides to announce the rules of this match. It will be a 3-on-3, just like last time, and only Gary can make substitutions. The winner will be declared when one side's Pokemon are all unable to battle. As Morty is the leader, he reveals his Pokemon first, as it is his ace and most powerful ghost type, Gengar. I can see you're not trying to hold anything back, Gary says, as he flashes back to the last time they battled. This thing proved to be quite the powerhouse. Even though it wasn't the final Pokemon in the battle, Gary still had quite the trouble with it. However, being the grandson of the great Professor Oak, Gary is very astute in remembering things and coming up for ways to solve problems that present themselves to him. Just like now, as he decides to start off with pure type advantage, sending in Umbreon to take the battlefield. Type advantage. Smart, Morty comments. I remember battling your Umbreon last time. It was quite the sneaky little Pokemon. Let's see if it still has that with my newly upgraded movesets on my Pokemon. Knowing the ghost types can be devious, and Morty seems like he's been through some intense training over the last couple of months, Gary decides to play it safe. That's why he chose to go with Umbreon in the first place. It's going to provide him a type advantage, and it's going to allow him to stall things out so he can feel out Morty's team. Gary proves this when Morty decides to take the first move, calling for something called a Sucker Punch. However, Gary just retaliates with a simple Confuse Ray. This causes the move of Gengar to miss, as the Confuse Ray connects with the ghost type, causing its eyes to flash in a rainbow light as it begins to run wild across the battlefield, fading in and out of the shadows and extending its large tongue to a comedic effect, trying to get anyone and anything that it comes in contact with to buy into its craziness that is going on at the current moment. Morty commends Gary on his choice. He had a feeling that this is what the boy was up to, and now that his Gengar is confused and he can't recall it, this is gonna get a little interesting, and Gary agrees as he calls for the first physical move from his Pokemon, a Bite. Umbreon begins to fade in and out of the dark spots of the battlefield, tracking its prey before it finally is able to sink its fangs deep into one of the arms of Gengar. Morty can do nothing but plead with his ace to do something, execute one of its moves, and luckily for the leader, he's able to get through to Gengar and past its confusion, allowing Gengar to fire off a Shadow Ball that connects with Umbreon in the head. However, it being a dark type, this doesn't really have that much of an effect on it, as it continues to chomp down even harder on Gengar's arm. The pain of the bite is enough to knock Gengar out of its confusion, allowing it to begin to flail about, trying to break the grip that this Umbreon has on it. It's here that Morty orders it to fade back into the shadows, so the Ghost type begins to sink into the ground, pulling Umbreon with it. However, the Dark type refuses to let go of its prey now that it has a firm grip, as at the command of its trainer, it begins to slowly pull back on the Ghost type. This begins a tug of war between the two, as Gengar is beginning to feel the effects of the bite, slowly draining its energy, as it is beginning to have trouble phasing in and out of the shadows of the battlefield. While things are getting a bit tense for Morty, he does have one ace up his sleeve, as he calls for a hypnosis. It's at this moment Gengar's eyes begin to spiral in reverse, as Umbreon looks deep into them, causing the Shadow Fox to begin to slowly nod off, as its grip slightly loosens on the arm of the Ghost type. However, this has an unforeseen effect, and is the real reason why Gary chose to go with Umbreon here. As it slowly dozes off into slumber, its Synchronize ability kicks in, pulling Gengar off to La La Land with it, as the Ghost type begins to fade, and then slumps over, half in the shadows and half out. Realizing this is his chance to actually claim a victory, Gary recalls Umbreon, opting for his newest catch on the team, as he sends in Houndour, howling and signifying that it is ready to battle at Gary's command. The Oak Boy gives the pup one simple order in Feint Attack. The Fire type slowly fades in and out of the shadows as it begins to strike Gengar with all the might that it can. Luckily for it and Gary, it only takes 2 successful attempts at the Feint Attacks before Gengar is rendered unable to battle, giving Gary the first win of the match. Recalling his ace, Morty compliments Gary on being able to get the first win. He's doing a far better job than he did last time. However, just because he got the first win doesn't mean that this battle is going to be easily won, the Ghost type specialist tells the Oak Boy. This is something that's made all too clear by Morty's next choice as he sends in his Lampent. Gary tells Houndour to be ready. After all, he remembers his last encounter with this thing, and it can be quite the trickly battler to deal with. Lampent starts things big by using a Shadow Ball aimed directly for the pooch. However, Gary has a counter for this, so that way he can try and block out the sight of Lampent, ordering Houndour to respond with a Smog that envelops the battlefield, hiding the pup for the time being. This causes the Shadow Ball to miss, allowing Gary a chance to reassess the situation. Houndour does have the type advantage here, however, it does not have the experience advantage, as it's still fairly young. But Gary comes up with an idea quick, telling its doggo to use its nose to sniff out Lampent. There has to be some sort of scent coming from that fire that burns eternally inside of it. The loyal dog executes this command, quickly finding its target. However, this is exactly what Morty was waiting for. Considering that Lampent couldn't really see where Houndour is at, he wanted it to come to Lampent. And Gary quickly finds out that this is a trap, as Morty tells Lampent to use a move that's going to be a great deal of concern, especially for a Pokemon that is as young as Houndour, as it is hit with a curse. By cutting his own HP in half, Lampent is able to inflict damage on a move-by-move basis, which allows it to really not have to do anything but just wait until the clock runs out. Unfortunately, this leaves Gary with little options. If he leaves Houndour in, then it's going to slowly lose HP until there's nothing left. But if he sends back out Umbreon, then he's got to deal with the whole fact that it's asleep. However, Umbreon does have one thing that Houndour does not. That is defense, and a lot of it. Realizing that it's his best hope at this current time, Gary makes a decision to recall the doggo to break the curse. Then, he quickly sends back in Umbreon. However, this is where he finds out that his choice may have not have been the best interest of the team after all, as he attempts to give a command to Umbreon only for it to snooze away continuously on the battlefield. This is where Morty reveals the second part of his dastardly strategy, as he orders Lampent to hit it with the Pain Split. This is going to allow the Ghost type to siphon off some of Umbreon's HP, so that way it can regain the health that it lost from using the curse on Houndour. As the Spectre begins to feel the relief of the gained HP, it bobs midair happily, as Morty tells Gary that he's going to have to make up a decision, as it doesn't seem like the course that he's on is going to allow him to really do anything, and if he really wants his badge, then he's going to have to change that immediately. Gary realizes that the leader is right, however he can't put Houndour back out here, so he makes one final attempt to try and plead with Umbreon to wake up. Luckily, his calls are able to get through to the Night Fox. As it slowly begins to stir, Morty realizes that he can't let Umbreon get any type of advantage, so he decides to go on the attack, telling Lampent to use Inferno. As the fire-type attack closes in on Umbreon, Gary has to think fast. However, it doesn't take Gary long, as he realizes there's going to be only one real way to beat this thing. It's going to be a war of attrition, because the moment that Lampent can get off a curse, that means that Umbreon is going to be on the clock, and he can't continue shuffling back and forth between Houndour in it. Otherwise, he's never going to make any progress. So he tells his Shadow Fox to jump straight through the Inferno, much to the surprise of everyone in attendance. And as Umbreon pushes through, it has a very special move for Lampent charged, as it spews a poison goo all over the fire type that is known as Toxic. This wasn't something Morty was expecting, as he tells Lampent to retreat so that way they can regain their bearings. However, unfortunately for the Ghost type master, he's going to have to do a little bit better than that, as Gary is back on the assault again, ordering a bite from Umbreon. However, Morty's not going to let this go without some consequence, as he counters with a curse of his own, turning this battle into a real war of attrition to see who can outlast each other's status condition. However, it seems that Gary is one step ahead of Morty. As the two clash and Umbreon is enveloped in the curse, Gary reveals his trump card in this battle and the reason why he swapped back to Umbreon, as he calls for a moonlight that slowly begins to recharge the health of the fox. Very clever, Morty says. You knew exactly what was going to happen, and you had that waiting in the back wings to counter anything that I had. And you know full well that Lampent has Pain Split, but it seems your chess pieces were 3 moves ahead of mine. That's right, Gary says. We both have status conditions, and you could use Pain Split to even the damage out between me and you. However, there's one thing that I have going for me that you don't. My damage that your status condition is going to inflict upon Umbreon is stagnant, minimal at best. However, Toxic is going to slowly snowball until Lampent is unable to battle. Morty is impressed. Gary definitely learned from their last battle, so he makes the decision to go all in. The next leg of this battle is a war of attrition to see who can outlast and if Morty can actually cause enough damage to Umbreon to knock it out before Lampent falls to the poison. But unfortunately for the gym leader, things aren't going to go his way, as Lampent is slowly drained of all of its energy and it collapses due to the poison running its final course, giving Gary a 2-0 lead over the gym leader. Recalling his ghastly lantern, Morty compliments Gary. Gary says he really paid attention during their last battle, and he spent the last few months thinking about how he was going to be able to get the best of Morty. Well, your hard work seems to be paying off, Morty says. However, you still got one final Pokemon to get through, and it's looking like your Umbreon may be a little bit winded, as Morty sends in his final Pokemon, Mismagius. The Ghost type hits the field with an eerie similarity to one of the ones that belongs to Marina. Gary notices this, using his Pokedex to get as much information on it. He actually finds out that it's the evolution of Mischievous, and this thing seems to be very, very tanky. The fact that Gary can see this and he hasn't even engaged with it yet is a testament to the quality of the Oak Boy as a trainer. However, he knows that Morty is right. He does recall Umbreon just to make sure that it has a chance to rest, sending back in his Houndour for another chance at a victory over the final Pokemon in this gym. However, this is where we get to see the big difference in these two, as experience is the great equalizer over the typing, with Mismagius being able to use a Protect against a bite that Houndour tries to execute against it, and then it replies in kind with a Thunderbolt that one-shots the doggo back into the doghouse, if you will. So much for it getting any rest, Gary says, as he recalls Houndour telling it that it did a great job. However, for its first gym badge, he didn't expect too much more out of it. This is where Gary sends back in the Night Fox, Umbreon, as if it can't win, then it can at least set something up so that way his third Pokemon can have a shot at getting Gary his next gym badge. Gary begins this battle by trying to set up a Toxic, ordering Umbreon in as quickly as it can. However, Mismagius has the perfect counter for this, responding with the Protect that blocks the attack, preventing it from getting poisoned. This puts Umbreon and Gary on the back foot, as while the fox's health is still pretty good, its stamina is beginning to run low, as we see this with Mismagius responding before Umbreon has a chance to counterattack, as it is hit with the Magical Leaf. Gary quickly calls for a Moonlight in order to counterbalance some of the damage that it just took. He knows one thing is for sure: the lower that Umbreon's stamina gets, the quicker its health is going to drop, so he has to do something about this quick. With little other choices, he tries his best to set up another static move in Confuse Ray. However, it's again met with the Protect that blocks the move, and then once more is followed up with a Thunderbolt on Mismagius' part. While this isn't enough to knock out Umbreon, it's definitely clear that it has begun to reach the end of its road. It's moving much slower and it's breathing very heavily. Either it's able to end this now or it's going to fall with the next move. This is where Gary orders it in with one final attack, a Bite. Putting everything it has into this final assault, Umbreon bolts down the field with whatever speed that it has left, evading any Thunderbolts and doing its best to hold off the Magical Leaps as it closes in the gap between it and Miss Magius. As the magical leaves begin to collect and hit Umbreon in the back, it is able to land the bite, dealing some damage before being knocked out, bringing the battle to a 1v1. Recalling Umbreon, Gary thanks it for all the effort that it put in. He wouldn't have made it this far in the battle if it wasn't for its ability to tank most of the moves that Morty was able to dish out to it and Houndour. Now comes the moment that everybody's been waiting for. What will Gary's final Pokemon be? Both Ethan and Marina look on from the stands contemplating this. However, Ethan has a pretty good idea on what it's going to be, and him and Gary are on the same page as he's holding a Pokeball in his hand. That was the one that fell last time in this gym. Scizor, go! The Metal Mantis emerges from its ball, ready to right the wrong that it had in this gym the last time when it lost. However, Morty and Miss Magius are not going to give up easy, as they have the pride of their gym on the line, and they're going to make sure that they keep it intact as long as possible. The battle starts, and Morty takes the first move, calling for a Thunderbolt. However, Gary is quick to respond, ordering a double team, which Scizor quickly uses, being able to evade the attack as multiple clones of it spread out throughout the gym, making it hard for Miss Magius to track whichever the one is the real one. Morty compliments Gary on Scizor's double team. It's pretty impressive, one of the most powerful ones it's ever seen. Gary responds by saying if he likes that one, then he's gonna like what comes next, as he orders Scizor to rush in with the Metal Claw. All of the clones begin to close in on Miss Magius, as Morty can do only one move, calling for a Magical Leaf to try and blanket the field and hit the real Scizor to try and knock it off of its game. While this is a good plan and it is effective, as you can hear it pinging off the hide of Scizor, there's one thing that the bug has that Miss Magius can't deal with, and that's its steel typing, as grass type moves will do next to nothing to it, as Scizor lands its Metal Claw, driving Miss Magius into the ground. While this isn't enough to beat the ghost type, it is enough to cause a decent amount of damage. However, this is exactly what Morty wanted. He wanted the gap between the two Pokemon to be closed, as he calls for a Thunderbolt that lights up Scizor in the process. Being a good conductor for the electric type move, Scizor absorbs the electricity, taking a decent amount of damage in the process. However, Gary tells it to back off and retreat back to its side of the field. This allows Miss Magius to recover by slowly levitating up, getting some room to breathe, if you will. However, it's obvious with Miss Magius, if it takes one more hit, then it's gonna probably fall on the next exchange, and Gary can see this. He just needs to create an opening. Realizing that Gary notices the weakness of Miss Magius, Morty knows that he has to do something here, or this next exchange will be the end of his Pokemon. However, he does have one idea left, but it all depends on if Gary uses the move that he thinks he is. Luckily for Morty, Gary does, as he orders a double team from Scizor. This allows Morty to respond in kind with a Psybeam. However, it's not aimed directly at Scizor, it's more sent through the building as a pulse, allowing Miss Magius to find the real copy. Now with it locked on, Miss Magius has a clear target as Morty orders a Thunderbolt to hit the Metal Mantis. However, Gary was hoping that Morty would try something like this, as he orders Scizor to use one of the moves that he's been saving on the back burner, a Wing Attack. Scizor begins to spin in a circle as its wings begin to generate somewhat of a vibration shield around it, allowing the Thunderbolt to kind of just circulate them on as it closes in on Miss Magius to land the final Metal Claw of the battle, driving Miss Magius into the ring floor and ending this, earning Gary the long-awaited badge that he's been patiently waiting for. With nothing but a smile on his face, Morty recalls Miss Magius thanking him for the battle. Then he presents Gary with the Fog Badge, telling him that he's earned it. Gary looks at the badge and he looks to Scizor, knowing that this is something that they both wanted. All the while, Marina and Ethan celebrate in the stands, as now Ethan can finally get over that burden that he's been carrying, as he was the one who kept blaming himself for Gary not winning the previous battle. However, all of the celebrations are cut short, as a very serious and stern man interjects himself, telling Morty that he has to talk to him right away. Using, what are you doing here? I thought you were out chasing Suicune, the leader says. The man clad in purple tells his old friend that he was. However, something of dire situation has come up, and he may need the leader's help. Morty says, of course, whatever he can do. While these two conversate, it gets the attention of Team Gary. All three of them are kind of eavesdropping on what's been going on, and they hear the man called Yusin mention something about Suicune, which is one of the legendary beasts of the Johto region, and another Pokemon, someone named Celebi. This is where Gary steps up, telling Morty that if this has to do with some sort of ancient or legendary Pokemon, he wants to know. Considering his grandfather is the authority on most legendary Pokemon in the world, he feels it's his duty to make sure that they're protected. However, the man Yusin quickly shuts this down, telling him that he doesn't have time for any kids on this journey. It's going to be perilous, and only adults should be able to handle it. However, Morty quickly responds, telling Yusin that this is Gary Oak, the grandson of Professor Oak. If there's one kid that may be able to help them with this, it would be him. him. Yuuzin still stands firm in his decision, however Morty quickly shuts it down again, telling him that they're gonna need help, and Gary and his friends are the only ones that are readily available. Though he doesn't like it, he does admit that Morty is right on this aspect. So he relents for the time being, just mentioning that the kids need to make sure that they take care of themselves because he doesn't have time to babysit them. While this comment does get to Marina and Ethan, it doesn't faze Gary, as he tells his teammates to simply quiet down. Let's see what they gotta say, and then they'll make any decisions on how they should treat this man afterwards. However, this is where Yuuzin asks Morty if he has any ideas. What should be their next step? However, the gym leader does have an idea, as he tells him, I think it's time we go pay the sisters a visit. After a quick trip to the ecuteak Pokemon Center, Gary, his friends, gym leader, and this very difficult person Yuuzin all find themselves in a house just north of Equiteak City by the towers. This is where Gary and his friends are introduced to the Kimono sisters, Eevee trainers that live here and are said to be guardians of ancient secrets in Johto's past. Morty tells the group that he often works with them when it comes to ancient history, as there's certain secrets that need to be protected. However, they can't always get to it. So the gym leader is the one who deals in these things. That's why he was gone for such a long time, because there was something that came up that he had to see to personally. Here, that the Eevee sisters tell them all to quiet down. They have an ancient tale that they need to confer to everyone, and it sets them back 300 years in the past, when the two towers were in pristine condition, and Ho-Oh and Lugia both adorned them with their presence. It is said that the day that the burned tower caught fire, 3 Pokemon perished in it, and Ho-Oh was able to use its legendary powers to reawaken these creatures, breathing new life into them and giving them a new purpose. While that part of the legend is true, there's one thing that most people don't know about the legend. The 3 creatures that were resurrected was Suicune of the North Wind, Entei of the Volcano, and Raikou of the Lightning Cloud. They were meant to represent the coming of nature, rebirth of the elements, if you will. However, there is one Pokemon that was involved that no one really knows about, as Ho-Oh needed its power to complete their resurrection. That was the Pokemon of Celebi. It has the ability to travel through time, or more importantly, reach through time to a different age, manipulating the time stream at its own free will, allowing things to change for the better or for the worse. This is where we find out that Ho-Oh had borrowed the powers of Celebi, as it opened a portal to a distant past, and Ho-Oh used its powers to pull the essence of 3 Pokemon from there to the modern age, to combine it with the 3 Pokemon that had perished in the fire, breathing new life into them, creating Pokemon that the world had never seen before, the 3 legendary beasts of Johto. And this is why it's so dangerous, Yuuzin said, as I've gotten word that a member of Team Rocket has been chasing Celebi through the Johto countryside for many months now, and he's beginning to close in on it. He's gotten word on a former Pokemon hunter that was once able to corner Celebi and had almost captured it. My fear is that this member of Team Rocket is seeking him out, so that way he can learn anything and everything he can about Celebi, and if he's successful in capturing it, then there is no telling what he will be able to do. This really is a problem, Morty replies. We cannot let anybody, especially a member of Team Rocket, get their hands on the abilities of Celebi. And as Morty says this, there is a large glowing pillar of light that erupts just south of Equiteak City from the direction of Goldenrod City. Our group looks on, knowing that whatever that was, it couldn't be good. This, my friends, is where we are going to leave things for now. So tell me, how did you feel about this part? Did you enjoy the gym battle and the rematch that Gary had with Morty? Do you feel like Scizor and him finally got some redemption? How do you feel about Yuuzin being the one to follow them all the way to Equiteak City? And of course, who is this member of Team Rocket that is hunting Celebi? Let me know in the comments down below. And that's all we had for today's video. I really appreciate you guys stopping by to watch all the way to the end, and I just wanted to say thank you for that. If you guys really enjoy my content, consider following me on some of my other platforms like Discord, where you can get to know other people who are interested in what ifs, or on Twitter, where I post sometimes behind the scenes updates. Or if you want to help the channel grow a little bit extra, why don't you consider donating like the people right here have, as whatever you could offer could help us get to a larger audience by helping us get new videos done, or some of the projects that we've been working. Custom art is getting kind of expensive, so we want to make sure that we have the funds to do that. But with all that being said, I really hope you guys enjoyed everything, and I will see you in the next video.